All right. So, my name is Gabriel Lyrio. Robert's social media manager. I work for him for 6 years now. And I'm also the creator of the page Light is Consciousness, Geometry in Nature, and Fractal Science, which is actually an institute in Brazil that I created with my friend Thiago Braga. And we teach about the science of fractals, sacred geometry, and hermetic philosophy. And that's what we're gonna be seeing today. And the point of my presentation is to describe how the universe is actually governed by universal laws, principles that organizes all of the dynamics and structures of the universe. So there's actually nothing random in reality. The name of the presentation is Vibration, Unveiling the Universal Order. So let's go. Our universe is electromagnetic. As Robert has been explaining to us, the universe is an electric harmonic field, and this field vibrates. Because of that, everything in the universe, in all scales, from atoms to galaxies and beyond, everything is vibrating. Why is that? Because atoms, they're actually electromagnetic. Atoms can only form atomic bonds to create molecules because of electromagnetism. It is the attractive force of magnetism that enables atoms to form geometry in molecules. So, the entirety of the universe forms recurring and repeating patterns across all scales because everything is electric, and because of that, some patterns will repeat. So, we see here some images of, for example, this purple image here. I'm going to show a bigger example later. This purple image here is the cosmic web. It is actually trillion clusters of galaxies that forms this pattern that is really similar to trees, or the other way around. Trees are similar to the universe. And if we pay attention to nature, we're going to see these ramification patterns all around. In trees, not only in trees, but in ourselves, in all organisms, we'll see those ramification patterns. Those are called fractal patterns. A fractal is a self-similar image where all of its parts are reflection of the whole. And for example, if you take a leaf, you see it has those ramification patterns, right? The same type of geometry formed in the entirety of the trees. We see those patterns in the root system, in the branches of the trees. And this happens because electricity moving in space will move in the most efficient way, in the least resistance. It will follow that path of least resistance of air, and thus will create those ramification patterns, So lightning bolts, they will create those ramification patterns, like the energy of all systems will form this, So some say that we are a living image of God, right? In this sense, we're a living image of the universe. We are self-similar to the universe. So the universe is a fractal, and we are a fractal of the universe. We are a microcosm of the universe. So in this sense, we live in a higher organism, and we're part of it, like cells. Like in the same way that each cell in our body has the entirety of our DNA, in the same sense, we have the entire DNA of the universe. We are a reflection of it. Okay. So, modern science says that there are fundamental forces in the universe, but they separate these forces. They call it gravity, electromagnetism, and strong and weak nuclear forces. But the ancients of the past, the great philosophers, they saw reality as a unified system of only one force, and they called it light. Light is the universal force. And what is light, guys? Light is electromagnetism. As Robert is explaining to us, there's only one unified harmonic field made of electricity. So all of these fundamental forces in reality are actually aspects of electricity. Gravity and the weak and strong nuclear forces are just echoes, are just expressions of this electricity. And in the same way, light expands itself, is the expanding aspect of this harmonic field. Gravity, for example, as Robert explains, it is a harmonic inversion of this expansion of light. So it actually compresses things, you know. So that is why planets are spherical and stars are spherical, because the compression of energy create the sphere. And the sphere is the most simple shape in reality. It's the most fundamental shape in sacred geometry. So all of geometries in the universe are a product of the fundamental force of electromagnetism. And all of the expressions of electromagnetism behave in a wake-like way, because actually electromagnetism is a wave phenomena. And for this reason, we see things such as gravitational waves. Like Einstein, he theorized about gravitational waves, and nowadays we have proven that literally this phenomenon exists. So gravity behaves like a wave, electromagnetism behaves like a wave, and also we know the phenomena known as wave-particle duality. We see particles behaving like waves, okay? So this harmonic field that Robert describes has polarity, okay? Just like a magnet. A magnet has poles, right? The south and north magnetic pole. And each pole has a force that points to opposite directions. And this creates a cycle. So that is why we can create electric motors, for example. They move in cycles, okay? And so this polarity of the harmonic field of magnetism actually forms all cycles in the universe. That is why we see electrons spinning, atoms are spinning, the planets are spinning, the stars, the solar system, the galaxies, everything has a cycle. And that is because electricity is actually spinning, okay? Okay, so you guys now understand that literally all of the universe is spinning, and this is forming vibration everywhere. The entirety of the universe is vibrating, okay? So there's one harmonic field made of electricity. Everything is electric. Electricity has frequencies and vibrations that forms certain resonances. And resonance is what is responsible for the shapes in nature, okay? But not only the shapes, but the dynamics as well. So all movements in reality is actually response or like a result of electricity. Like I'm moving my arms and talking to you right now because of the universal force of electricity. And this same force is actually moving the stars and the constellations and everything. So the universal force that moves the constellations is actually inside me, inside all of us. And it's like what the ancient alchemists called the soul of the world. So the soul of reality is electromagnetism, and it is light. So I want you guys to also understand that light is not only incandescence or brightness. For example, the spectrum of light, or the electromagnetic spectrum that we see, it's like 0.1% of reality, okay? There's like 99% of a giant spectrum that is invisible to us, and that is light. Wi-Fi, for example, Wi-Fi is light. It's light, but it's an invisible kind of light, okay? So the harmonic field in reality is made of light, okay? Everything's made of light. You guys are all made of light. You think you're not made of light because you're not like incandescent, but you are, okay? Like our nervous system, for example, it's electromagnetic. Our neurons communicate to electricity, and also through photonic signals. It's been discovered recently. And also our DNA, it acts like an antenna, electromagnetic antenna, and it signals all of the cells in our body to form the morphology of our body. So actually, we are formed because of electricity, because DNA has a language that is electric and is also photonic. It also uses photonic signals, light signals and electric signals, okay? So, all right, let's move on because we have a bunch of things in here. So one thing for you guys to know is that the fundamental forces that are expressions of electromagnetism, they are governed by mathematical constants, such as pi, phi, the Euler number. We see pi in spheres, in circles, right? And spheres are all around reality. So because of that, pi is like omnipresent in reality, you know. Pi also governs wave phenomena. So all phenomena in the universe can be related to pi because all phenomena is wave, okay? And also, for example, the phi constant, the golden angle, appears like in all of our bodies. Our DNA, for example, it expresses the golden ratio. Our DNA also expresses the Fibonacci sequence, which is a sequence that appears all over nature, okay? Like branching patterns of certain flowers and trees, they will form Fibonacci numbers and golden ratio. And what is really crazy is that those same patterns that are all across nature also appear inside our DNA, and how our body distribute our geometry on our faces, okay? So reality is full of order and geometry, okay? And the fundamental force of electromagnetism actually express those constants in nature. For example, the fine structure constant that relates to the number 137 governs electromagnetism. And this number is related to the golden angle, okay? So for this reason, we see the golden angle and phi appearing all around the world, okay? So actually reality is absolutely ordered. There is no randomness. This guy here knows, and he's trying to teach this. The only thing that he's trying to teach is that there's no randomness in the universe, okay? And so everything is governed by one fundamental force. This fundamental force behaves in a wave-like manner because everything is vibrating, it is energy. Einstein has proven that there's an equivalence of mass and energy, right? All mass has energy, and energy is electromagnetic, it is vibrating, it has a frequency, okay? So there's an ancient hermetic law called the law of correspondence. It says, as above, so below, as within, so without, okay? So all scales of the universe, since from atoms to galaxies and beyond, since they're expressions of electromagnetism, literally, we're gonna see self-similar patterns all around us. So the ancients knew this, like thousands of years ago, and nowadays, modern science is proving all of this, and that is really amazing. So some other examples here of fractals in rivers, you know, in coastlines, mountains. If you see like Google map, you're gonna see like fractals all around, okay? For example here, we are bioelectromagnetic, and for this reason, we see fractals all around us, okay? Like in the heart, our lungs, our brains, all of our organs, so we're literally fractals, all right? Another example here, comparing the lightning bolts in the nervous system. So, okay, the cosmic web. This thing here is called Laniakea. It's the cluster of galaxies where we live in. This small dot here represents this thing we call the Milky Way, okay? The Milky Way is just a little small dot inside this thing here that looks like maybe a river, maybe lungs, okay? So normally when we think about the universe, we think, oh, it's just like blackness, infinite blackness, and all of a sudden nothing exploded, and for some reason now there's like balls spinning for no reason, and we live like in a ball that for no reason at all evolved into super complex pattern and intelligent consciousness that's able to like create amazing technologies and to love and to, you know. So what I'm trying to say here is that the universe is literally organized like an organism, okay? And it's not just like dead matter spinning for no reason, okay? Most people, when they think about the universe, they just think, well, it's a ball spinning around a ball of fire, and nothing makes sense because literally the cosmology, the modern cosmology tells us that nothing exploded, and for no reason you're here because randomly you evolved, okay? But if you pay attention to the laws of physics, you understand it can't be random, okay? It's literally organized. So comparing neurons to the cosmic web, it's really similar, right? Really similar. So, information. Everything is information, and information organizes itself in a fractal way. And for that reason, everything is a fractal. For example, if you look at the map of the internet, is a fractal, okay? If you look at the map of science, is a fractal. And this thing here is Laniakea, and the polar opposite of it, that it is Perseus species, which is actually another cluster of galaxies. And look at this pattern. What? Oh, sorry. So look at this pattern. It's like a brain or lungs, right? So we live in a universe that is absolutely organized, not just balls spinning in the darkness for no reason, okay? This is like cliche quote. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. This guy that no one knows said that, all right? Yeah. So everything in the universe is made of energy, from matter to light, governing how things interact, okay? Frequency is the number of cycles per unit of time, and that appears in sound waves, electromagnetic radiation. I want you guys to know that also sound, in physics, they treat it like a mechanical wave that has nothing to do with electromagnetism, but John Stuart Reid has already proven that sound has electromagnetic components and light also has sonic components, okay? And you can convert one into one another, just like we can convert light into energy, into electricity, into like cycles, you know, into heat, into motion, okay? So vibration is the oscillating movement of energy at all scales, from atoms to celestial bodies and beyond, all right?
Can you say that again? Light is the... Light is the...
Light is an electromagnetic wave, and you can convert it into cycles, into heat, into energy, into motion, okay?
What is fractals of energy?
All right. So to summarize, the universe is made up of wave phenomena. Such phenomena are governed by mathematical constants. These constants express geometry in nature. So don't get these concepts out of your mind. Vibration, constants, and geometry. This is why it is called the cosmos. Cosmos means order. So, as I said, there's an energy mass equivalence in reality, and that was described by Einstein, okay? So that means that all matter is energy. Energy is the universal expression, all right? It's not just like, wow, man, everything is vibration. It's not just like this hippie talk, okay? What I'm trying to do in this presentation is convert abstract concepts into concrete knowledge, okay? So matter is vibrating energy. Vibration can be described as frequency. Frequency can be expressed as numbers. Numbers can be perceived and organized as forms and patterns. So Galileo Galilei, that no one knows this guy, he said, the universe cannot be understood until we have learned its language and become familiar with its characters in which it is written. It is written in the language of mathematics, and the letters are triangles, circles, and other geometric figures, without which it would be humanly impossible to understand a single word, okay? So Galileo is like considered a polymath, that it was an astronomer, a physicist, an engineer, and father of modern physics, okay? All right, so for us to understand this thing here that I just explained to you guys, we need to understand what is vibration. So cymatics is the study of vibration, okay? Cyma is the Greek word for vibration. Hans Jenny was an acoustic engineer that started to study vibration visually. He used the same method that Ernst Chladni, that was a physicist that lived way back in the past, and through this method he made an entire catalog of hundreds of images that reoccur in nature only through vibration, by using a metal plate or balls of water and vibrating them with certain specific frequencies that would create certain resonances in it. He discovered a bunch of geometric patterns in nature, okay? And he saw there was a relationship between resonance and morphology in nature. The language of matter in DNA, it is a language of frequency and resonance. Chemistry, physics, astronomy, biology, all express as a universal language of vibration, which can be perceived with our naked eyes. Energy and vibration shapes matter, okay? So all of the forms you see in reality are a result of vibration. For example, we see like the spot patterns of a leopard. This thing here is a metal plate with sand above it, and with a certain frequency and resonance, it creates the same type of geometry that we see in the spot patterns of a leopard, okay? Diatoms, they form like those pentagonal star structures, okay, that is also formed by cymatics, that is the visual aspect of sound, okay? So, for example, an ice flake, like a snowflake, here forming this hexagonal pattern, and here is a cymatics forming the exact same geometry. The cross-section of the DNA form this decagon star, and we can form the same pattern through cymatics. All right, so let's keep going. Here we have some examples. Let me see if it will reproduce. Just a minute. So I'm not gonna use this example here. I'm just gonna go ahead in here because it's faster. I'm gonna put sound in here. So it's a metal plate with sand above it, and he takes like this violin bow, and it's reshaping its form, right? I'm gonna give other examples for you here. Let me see it. Okay, it's this video here. It's nice to note that the higher the frequency, the more complex it becomes. Okay, this is just the metal plate example. We have examples with water as well, and I think I really enjoyed the ones with water. So here's the images, just for you guys to see. All right.
Are those images repeatable at that frequency every single time?
It depends, because what creates the geometry is the resonance. Okay, and the resonance is the result of the interaction of the frequency with the environment. Okay, so the medium also influences in the resulting resonance. Okay, if you have the same bowl with the same amount of water, okay, and if you play a specific frequency in it, it will always create the same type of geometry, okay? But if it is like a different medium with like different amounts of water, it will form different patterns. Okay, let's see if this plays. No, it's not playing. So this is the example of, yeah, it doesn't play. Okay.
This camera is pointing straight down at this dish of vibrating water. As the ripples of the water hit the edge of the dish, they begin to fold back on themselves, creating these beautiful geometric patterns. The light shining down from above reveals a reflection off the surface of the water. This is called Cymatics, the study of sound made visible.
Okay. I'd like you guys to see this video here, but I'm not sure if the connection will enables us to see it. Let's wait for a bit, because in this example it will show hexagonal patterns, and the hexagon is a really important pattern in sacred geometry, as you guys know.
Water, light,
okay,
and vibration.
So you guys saw the hexagonal star being formed in here just by frequency alone. And in sacred geometry, the hexagon is one of the most important patterns. Do you guys know the seed of life, the flower of life? It is actually a geometry that enables all of the other polygons in reality to be formed. And in this presentation today, I hope you guys will be able to understand this, because I'm not only going to be talking about 2D geometry, I'm going to be showing this type of sacred geometry in nature, just as like I'm showing here in Cymatics, all right? So, sacred geometry is the language of vibration, the language of the universe, okay? It is not just 2D drawings and 2D patterns, okay? Through the 2D geometry, we can understand the geometry of the entirety of the infinite, okay? But sacred geometry goes beyond 2D. And here we have an example. I'm gonna play this video, but first, take a look at this pattern. It's just a photo of cymatics in water, and it's forming this sunflower pattern, okay? And it has Fibonacci numbers and the golden ratio in it. So through frequency alone, we can create a constant that it's all around the universe, okay? So let's play this video. Let's see if it's gonna play it. So you guys can see it here in real time, the golden ratio and the Fibonacci numbers being formed in here. It's the geometry of a sunflower, okay? All right. So here we have more examples of cymatics creating threefold, fourfold, fivefold, sixfold, and so on. And you can see that once you keep adding more sides to the polygon, it eventually forms spirals, okay? This is just like a torus seen from above, and I'm gonna explain what it is, a torus, later in this presentation, okay? So frequency creates the same types of shapes that we see in flowers and all across reality, not only on Earth, but beyond Earth as well, and we're gonna understand that. Here we have a fractal of pentagons inside one another, okay, and this is also being formed by cymatics. And you guys know that not only hexagons but also pentagons are considered sacred. For example, in the Pythagorean order, it is the symbol of the universe, the pentagonal star, okay? And in Judaism, we have the Star of David, right? And in Hindu cosmology and Vedanta, both of those patterns, both pentagon and hexagon, are considered sacred and are associated with the creation of the universe and of reality itself, okay? And this is also a pentagon is actually the logo of Fractal Science, the institute that I created with my friend Tiago. And this is exactly my logo, okay? But it is also the orbital resonance between Earth and Venus, okay, in 13 Venus years and 8 Earth years, if you relate those orbital patterns and you trace their orbits on a graph, they will form this freaking fractal pentagonal star. Like, what the hell? Like, how is this possible? Why does that happen? Okay, it's resonance. As I told you guys, what is responsible for shape in matter? It's resonance, okay? So, literally, the cycle of the planets will form the same type of geometry that we can see in cymatics, because cycles are literally a result of electricity. The frequency of electricity will create certain cycles, okay? So literally the orbits of the planets are a result of the fundamental force of electromagnetism and gravity, which is an expression of electromagnetism, okay? So we can see the pentagonal patterns, like pentagonal patterns all around nature. As I already showed you guys, the decagonal star, which is two pentagons inside one another, okay? So if you take literally the orbital pattern of Venus and Earth, and you superimpose above a cymatic pattern, it will literally fit, okay? It's because they're made from the same phenomena, which is cymatics or resonance. And the Hindu and the Vedics, they already said that the universe is a giant mandala, and it is actually drawing mandalas all around the universe. So we have, these are relationships of orbits, the relationships of each planet with Earth, okay? So if you relate the orbit of planet and Mercury, you're gonna find this thing here that seems like a butt. Look at this, okay? And and we have like these patterns in ourselves as well, because it is a reflective pattern, okay? And we are reflective beings. If you see, we have a polarity, okay? And polarity in geometry forms patterns that are similar to butts, okay? So that is why we have butts also. But talking about the planets, the entirety of the universe is drawing those things, but we know that orbits are actually elliptical, right? But by making an approximation to circles, we will see this perfect geometries being formed, and Venus has the most circular orbit in the entire solar system. So this is really close to the actual pattern that is formed in the sky, okay? So here we have this GIF showing like a bunch of relationships of patterns. Okay, you can see here, it shows like the first, the second, and the relationship of which patterns. You guys can pause it later and see it. So you see, the planets are drawing the same types of geometries that we see in cymatics, okay? It's the same geometric matrix. So as I have already told you guys, the golden ratio appears inside our DNA. And literally, we have pentagonal and hexagonal molecules inside our DNA, all right? And we can extract the golden ratio from a pentagram, okay? So that is why we have the golden ratio inside our DNA. And what is really interesting is that sacred geometry is related to the creation of life, right? And many people don't understand that, but our DNA expresses, as I said, both pentagonal and hexagonal geometries. And without those geometries, we wouldn't be the way we are, okay? Literally, there must be the geometry of pentagons and hexagons for us to exist, all right? That is one of the reasons why sacred geometry is related to the creation of life, and I'm gonna give you some other examples of the why sacred geometry relates to life. Okay, so I'm gonna play this video here. this is an example. The first time I saw this, I was like, oh my God, what the hell? Like, you get 3 circles and you just make them orbit, you know, inside each of their circumference, and if you trace the orbit, it will form literally a freaking pentagon star. And I was like literally into occultism, and like pentagrams are like sacred symbols in occultism. And I was like, oh my God, it doesn't matter where you are in the universe. If you take 3 circles and you put them like inside one another and to make them orbit, it will form this pattern. And yeah, but if you have even more and more circles, you will form this more complex pattern, this fractal pattern. This one here looks like a snowflake, okay? And we can create like all kinds of geometries with this. This is just a small example, okay? So what we see here is that just cycles create geometry, okay? Just literally cycles. You just need circles in order to create polygons, okay? And that is the relationship of frequency, cycles, and geometry, all right? I hope you guys can understand how in geometry, frequency and vibration is literally intrinsic aspect to it. It's not just an arbitrary connection. Literally what forms the geometry of nature is the resonance, okay? That relates to frequency. Okay. So here, for example, the phyllotaxis pattern of this flower, the way this flower distributes its petals in order to absorb the light of the sun in the most efficient way and harmonic way, it distributes its petals according to the Fibonacci sequence, okay? So literally, people say, well, Fibonacci, he invented this pattern, but in fact, the Hindus, the Indians, they already discovered like the Fibonacci numbers like thousands of years before Fibonacci. He discovered this in India. But like since we have like this Eurocentric culture, we say, well, it's Fibonacci's. But anyway, it's not the Indians' number or Fibonacci number. It's nature's number. Nature created this. Okay, people discovered those patterns in nature, and we're just like categorizing it like. But anyway, not only the flowers are using this function, but our DNA as well. And as I told you, our fingers have the golden ratio, and the golden ratio also appears inside the Fibonacci sequence. We can see the branching of certain flowers also following Fibonacci numbers, okay? And in here, like, the golden ratio is literally here. And you know what is really interesting? I told you guys that the orbital pattern, the relationship of the orbital pattern of Earth and Venus is 8 Earth years and 13 Venus years, right? Those are consecutive Fibonacci numbers, okay? And they form the freaking pentagon that has the golden ratio in it. And what's the difference between 8 and 13? 5. 5 is the number of freaking lobes this geometry have, okay? So is that some crazy coincidence? This is just the ultimate proof that reality is being formed by mathematics and geometry, okay? So yeah, as I said, like the Hindus, the Vedics, the Muslims, the Christians, the Jews, the alchemists, the Greeks, you know, the Freemasons and whatever. You guys get it, right? All of these dudes, they literally associated those patterns with divinity and the creation of life and of the universe, okay? I don't think that's some sort of coincidence. So, literally, that's the sound, the music that you're hearing is forming this geometry. There's a bowl of water that is being filmed from above, and there's this light, this pink light above it, you know, helping us to better see the pattern. And the quality of the video is not really great, you know, because the connection is not really good. But what is happening here, there's a hexagonal pattern. This video is like 1 hour long, but not this one. This is just like a clip of it. But it forms both pentagonal and hexagonal patterns. Okay, so just to show you guys, those things here, I forgot to explain. Those are just shots, just pictures of cymatic patterns. These are not computer graphics, okay? It's literally just photos, okay? I just superimposed a geometry here and in here, so you guys can see it easier, you know, the geometry that is being formed, okay? So, another example of cymatics, photos here. This is literally the flower of life, guys. The flower of life is a hexagonal grid made of circles intersecting themselves and creating literally this hexagonal grid. So we see here photos of the cymatics experiment forming the vector equilibrium, the tetrahedron grid, you know, the Metatron's cube, flower of life, hexagonal grid, everything, just by vibrating water. So let's see the video. There's no sound in here because the sound of this video is really horrible. It's like it's a screeching frequency, and it forms here the patterns that I just showed you guys, and it's literally those patterns. So these are the most fundamental patterns in sacred geometry in both circular and straight aspects, okay? The circular is associated with the feminine energy and the straight with the masculine energy. So, literally, as I said, we live in a harmonic field, okay, made of electricity and light. How does light expand itself in the universe? It expands in a circular way. So literally, light in space from a point will expand and form a sphere. All right? So sacred geometry is the expression of the most fundamental aspects of the fundamental force of electricity, that is the harmonic field that Robert is explaining to us, okay? And also this harmonic field has the vectorial expression, that is the straight line aspect to it. And the vector equilibrium, or the cube octahedron, that is this geometry here, is the vector equilibrium. It is literally how this geometry stabilizes itself, okay? So these forms are actually the geometric matrix of electromagnetism. And if reality is electromagnetic, literally this is the geometric matrix that composes all geometry in nature. And those things here are not static geometry. They're actually a system that moves and transforms itself just like frequency. You guys, have you ever seen a vector scope or an oscilloscope? You can actually visualize the geometry of the sound waves, okay? If you take two sound waves and modulate them, you can create the geometry of torus and of sacred geometry. You can create these types of geometry with just sound, just like you can create in cymatics, okay? Actually, like in an oscilloscope, what you're seeing is cymatics. Okay, let's go. We have more examples. So,
quick question. Say that last part again. You said with the oscilloscopes you take two?
If you take two frequencies, you can literally create, if those frequencies are identical, they will form just a circle. But if you modulate...
They will form just a what?
A circle.
Circle?
But if you modulate one of them, it will start to transform itself, and depending on the frequency, it will form a torus. And you can create like the orbital patterns of planets. You can create cymatic patterns. Okay, it's crazy.
So I think if you stack this,
give it to Robert, the microphone.
I think if you stack this with different frequencies, right, this harmonic stacking is what gives us mass and solidity from a matrix. So basically that's what's happening. This gets stacked multiple times over, then fractal recursion, stacking, and then it gets this form of solidness. But it's actually not, right? It's just our perception, like time. Same thing. So that's interesting though, because I want to talk more about that when we get a minute.
Yeah, I mean, like I should have put the example of the oscilloscope in here because it's amazing, but I didn't. Okay, so this geometry that you guys saw, it's all around the world, different cultures associated with the divine, as I said, with the creation of life and of the universe. So we see this pattern like in Egypt, in the Osirian temple. I don't know if we're going to the Osirian temple in this expedition, but there's the literally many, like dozens, if not hundreds of flower of life patterns here in the Osirian temple. And so we can see the flower of life in Scotland, in Israel, in China, in Turkey, as I said, in Egypt, in India, in Germany, in Bulgaria, in Sweden, in France, the Czech Republic, Greece, and like dozens of other places, you know. And they frequently associate this pattern with the divine, okay, and the creation of life. So let's see. No, okay, I'm gonna reproduce this video here because it's in better quality. Let me just find it. Okay, easy. So this is the vector equilibrium, okay, the straight lines. Then there's the tetrahedral array, and around it the torus. And if you expand the vector equilibrium, we can see the triangulation, you know, in the tetrahedron grid being formed. And around each tetrahedron in here, we can see the spheres. So this is actually the three-dimensional version of the flower of life that we saw. It's literally formed by tetrahedra, a tetrahedral array or matrix, and the circular closed sphere packing, okay? And this is literally the geometry of electromagnetic fields, and we're gonna understand this just now. So this is David Lapointe's Primer Fields documentary. We have like two magnetic balls, one above another, okay? And they're throwing metallic spheres around those balls. And it is forming a triangulation pattern. The first three spheres will form a triangle, and then four spheres a square, and then five a pentagon, and then six a hexagon, and eventually a hexagonal grid that is the flower of life, okay? So literally we can see electromagnetism forming patterns of sacred geometry. We see the vector equilibrium in here. We see Metatron's cube.
Yeah.
We see the flower of life. We see the pentagon that was associated by many cultures as divine. We see the hexagon, you know. So literally molecules, as I told you guys, are formed by electromagnetism, and electromagnetism forms geometry. That is why we see geometric molecules all around the universe. But okay, not only in molecules, guys. This freaking hexagon here, it's on the North Pole of Saturn, okay? It's forming a giant cymatic pattern, all right? There's a giant storm going on in the North Pole of Saturn, and matter is being organized into this giant hexagon. And it's important to know that it's in the North Pole, and the pole is what? Is electromagnetic, okay? It's forming this freaking hexagon, all right? So all scales of reality will form geometric patterns. Doesn't matter where it is, okay? So here we have an example of the regular polyhedra, also known as the platonic solids, being formed inside the flower of life. If you take each circle, Robert, he has a course, philosophical geometry, where he draws sacred geometry, and he teaches us how to draw those geometries, okay? So if you create a dot inside the center of each circle, and you start connecting those dots with a straight line to the center of the circles around it in a hexagon configuration, you will form Metatron's cube. And from Metatron's cube, if you do the same thing, you're gonna find the 5 regular polyhedra, okay, which is the basis of all molecular self-assembly in the geometric, in the periodic table of elements. So all solids in the periodic table of elements are based on the transformations of those patterns in here, those regular polyhedra, okay? So literally, everything that we're seeing with our eyes is a manifestation of this Metatron's cube and those polyhedra, okay? So molecular self-assembly can only form those types of geometries, because as I showed you guys, literally the geometric matrix of electromagnetism is the flower of life. So what is this? This is a nanographene molecule, all right? It is made out of what? Carbon. We are made of carbon. All life on Earth is made of carbon, right? Literally the freaking geometry of carbon, it's what? It's a Metatron's cube, guys. It's the flower of life, it's the vector equilibrium. If you superimpose the flower of life over a molecule of graphene, it's a sacred geometric pattern. So when people call the main geometry of sacred geometry flower of life, it's because the hexagon is responsible for life on Earth. If literally all life on Earth is made of carbon, and carbon...
Isn't it like Metatron's distortion?
Oh no, don't say that. There are some crazy...
Please explain how this is not the daisy of death.
I will explain. It's where? In here. In these slides, the daisy of death, guys, they are destroyed. They're melted to death, you know. But the daisy of death is like this crazy conspiracy that some crazy guy says. They say that, wow, the hexagon is an evil pattern from Satan. And
No, it's Ashiana-Dean.
yeah, and it's distorted and whatnot. And they say that the torus is actually the main source of everything. They call the torus the eternal life lotus, okay? It's the same thing. I'm gonna show you in this presentation how literally the seed of life becomes the torus, okay? So forget those things about the daisy of death. Only like crazy people believe in this, okay? But what is interesting about sacred geometry is not only seeing beautiful patterns in nature and how everything is organized in a harmonic way, but I think one of the most interesting things is that we can reverse engineer the harmony of the order of the universe by understanding sacred geometry. For example, graphene is a revolutionary molecule just like borofene, and both of these molecules are hexagonal. And why are they revolutionary? Because of their geometric array, because they're hexagonal. For example, even bees, they form like the hexagonal lattice in the, you know, the honeycomb. Yes. So graphene is revolutionizing DNA sequencing. It's helping us to understand lots of things, you know, regarding the emergence of life on Earth. It is able to speed up computer chips, store data transfer really faster, you know. thousands of times more hard drive and memory capacity, increase internet speed beyond 100 times faster, create ultra strong and light concrete, extend the useful life of electronics, So this is just a small list of what we can do with graphene. That is a hexagonal molecule, okay? That is the power of the hexagon. So understanding hexagons and reverse engineering this geometry of nature, this sacred geometry, we can better our technology and make our lives easier and better, okay? So once we integrate this harmony of the universe into our lives, we'll be able to create this technology based on sacred geometry, okay? So sacred geometry is really a revolutionary technology, not only beautiful drawings, okay? So the circles is the most fundamental aspect of sacred geometry in 2D. It's important for you guys to understand that the 2D is a shadow, it's an orthogonal projection of a higher dimensional solid, such as the 3D form. So the circle is a shadow of a sphere, okay? And the first pattern of sacred geometry is a circle that is light expanding, all right? Or a sphere. And when you multiply the circle into 2, it creates the Vesicapisces, and inside the Vesicapisces we find like the square root of like a bunch of numbers and like information related to the speed of light, and those square roots are responsible for functions in nature, okay? So literally just by intersecting 2 circles, you will get like a bunch of important information regarding physics and how nature organizes itself, okay? So from a Vesicapisces we can create a triangle, okay? And also, as I told you guys, pentagrams and hexagons are an intrinsic aspect of sacred geometry. By intersecting 7 circles, eventually will form the seed of life, and if you keep intersecting circles, you will form the flower of life, and from it you extract Metatron's cube, and you can get the 5 regular polyhedra that is the basis of literally everything that you're seeing right now. If you're seeing something, okay, it is made up of matter, and matter is made up of 5 regular polyhedra. And so yeah, okay, the torus. The torus is this hyperbolic, aspect of the flower of life. So pay attention to the seed of life here. If you multiply the circles of the flower of life and you rotate it, you will see the geometry of a torus seen from above, okay? This is literally the torus seen from above. This is a 3D torus, okay? It has poles, and this is literally the geometry of electromagnetic fields, okay? And as I told you guys, sacred geometry is frequency. It is dynamic. It transforms itself. So, for example, if you form a torus in a vector scope and you modulate its geometry, you can transform it, okay? Like its fulcrum can become bigger, smaller, and it can literally transform itself into like the geometries that we saw on the Cymatics experiments, okay? So literally this shape can be transformed into all of the geometries in the universe, okay? And we also see these around atoms, around people. We literally have a really strong magnetic field around our heart, and its geometry is this thing here, okay? This is around planets, stars, like galaxies, okay? So this is a picture of a magnet below a ferrocell. Ferrocell is a magnetic film that allows the magnetic field to interact with a ferrofluid that is inside this magnetic field, and there are LED lights around here helping us to see the configuration of the electromagnetic field. That is literally the torus that you guys just saw here, okay? The torus that is being formed by the seed of life, it's here. So can you guys understand the relationship between this pattern and the flower of life? Literally, this is the most fundamental essence of the flower of life. Literally, just multiply and rotate it sometimes here. Taurus, all right. This is a vortex cymatics. You guys have already seen it. Literally, we saw earlier the cymatics forming the sunflower pattern is literally a torus. And let's see, this is a 3D video. So we got some ferrocells in here, and all of the ferrocells are vertically. There's a big neodymium magnet in here, and I know the video quality is not the best, but it's actually forming a torus, okay? It's actually forming this shape here. So literally, magnetic fields are toroidal in nature. And as I told you guys, this shape is all around the universe, okay? And the vectorial equilibrium of this torus is literally the vector equilibrium, okay? That is the straight lines version of the flower of life that forms the isotropic vector matrix, that is the tetrahedral array, okay? I will show you guys again this video here because it is really important to like be burned inside your minds, okay? This is the geometric dynamic system of the flower of life. It was called by Buckminster Fuller synergetics, okay? It is the science of synergy of energy. And energy literally will form these patterns. This is like the operational system of the universe. So all of the cymatics is obeying this system. The vector equilibrium, that is the straight line versions of what you're seeing, has this quality, the property called the jitterbug. That is the capacity of the vector equilibrium. It's also important to notice that the vector equilibrium is the 3D shape, the most stable 3D shape that exists, okay? But it has this ability of becoming unstable, and when it does, it can literally transform into the Platonic solids, okay? So in the same way, the flower of life, we can extract the Platonic solids from it. Its straight lines version transform itself into the Platonic solids. Okay, I don't know why I did. Okay, so here we have some examples of geometry in nature, and it is nice for you guys to understand that both symmetries and asymmetries are expressions of the fundamental force of electromagnetism, that is the harmonic field, okay? And the constants in nature, they are responsible for these patterns. If you take mathematical constants and you put them inside graphics and you modulate the mathematical equations in it, we can create both symmetrical and asymmetrical patterns, okay? So even the patterns that seem chaotic and they seem to have no form, they are also expressions of the fundamental force of electromagnetism, all right? So literally, both chaos and order are part of the same system in a complementary way. There's no such thing as chaos, okay? What seems to be disorder is an order that is above our capacity of understanding, okay? But if you train your mind to expand your consciousness, you'll understand that what seems to be random, there's an intrinsic order behind it, okay? Yeah. So we see many cultures around the world, cultures that had never had contact with one another. When they create their sacred temples to divinize God, to connect with God, what will they embed in their architecture? For some random reason, for some coincidence, it's sacred geometry. Like, oh my God. So in Hindu temples, in Buddhism, in Jewish temples, in Muslim temples, in Christian temples, you will see sacred geometry everywhere. And the reason why is because sacred geometry embeds in itself a universal order that creates everything. And the wise men of the past, they understood this. And what is really crazy is that if you, for example, use some sort of psychedelic substance or achieve some sort of altered state of consciousness, you will see this type of geometry. Even if you're like a Native American that has never had like never studied geometry the way we did, he will see sacred geometry. You know, like for example, if you use DMT, you're gonna see sacred geometry. Why is that? Because consciousness is made of light, and light creates resonances that forms geometry. Okay, so all around the universe, all around Earth and in the universe, beings will eventually see that reality is geometric. Okay, even if you don't study geometry, just by achieving altered states of consciousness, you will see sacred geometry. And I believe that most of the major religions, they had an aspect of psychedelic rites in it, okay? And that is why they discovered that geometry is related to the creation of life, okay? Because, for example, when you use DMT, you will see a bunch of geometries and you have the feeling of sacredness, okay? So, but you don't have to use DMT to understand all of this. And fractals, they have multiple applications, okay? As I told you guys, I think the most important thing about understanding the order of the universe and understanding that reality is fractal is being able to reverse engineer it. So fractal is a branch of mathematics, and it has like hundreds of applications in all of sciences, okay? So in neuroscience, fractals is revolutionary. Literally, fractals, this branch of mathematics, is revolutionizing all of these sciences in here, okay? Psychology, psychophysics, medicine, engineering, nanotechnology, biomimetics, biology, anatomy, architecture, taxonomy, genetics, chemistry, physics, thermodynamics, physical cosmology, astronomy, geography, geology. You know, okay? This is because, as I told you guys, information organizes itself into fractals. So when you create a science, what are you doing? You're connecting information. Eventually, it will be a fractal, okay? For this reason, if you apply fractal mathematics to whatever branch of science, you will find a really efficient way to revolutionize your science, okay? So we're almost finished here, all right? There are two papers done by two different academies here. One, the universe resembles a human brain, okay? There's a paper called The Quantitative Comparison Between the Neuronal Network of the Cosmic Web, published by Frontiers in Physics, a magazine by Italian experts from two different fields. Astrophysicist Franco Vazza from the University of Bologna, and a neurosurgeon Alberto Fellecci from the University of Verona. So this study found that the cosmic web is really similar to our brains, but not only in geometry, but in function. Our brains, literally the fractal dimensions of our brains, works in a really similar way to the cosmic web. And what is interesting to note is that the fractal dimensions of the cosmic web is more similar to our neurons than it is similar to galaxies. Literally, our neurons are more similar to the universe than galaxies are similar to the universe, okay? And there's this another paper from Vitaly Venturin of the University of Minnesota, and it is The World as a Neural Network. He says that by understanding both quantum mechanics and classical physics through the lenses of neural networks, you're able to reconcile both of those sciences that are like literally the dream of Einstein was to reconcile quantum mechanics and classical physics, and Robert did just that, you know, with his recent work, okay? That now we understand that it's literally just a harmonic field, and even gravity is a harmonic inversion of electricity, okay? But what this shows to us is that in the ancient philosophies, such as Vedanta or Hinduism, they would say that reality is consciousness. Reality is made up of light. So the substance of reality is consciousness. Everything in the universe is consciousness. In hermetic philosophy, they say that the all is mind, the universe is mental, that we live in an infinite living mind, okay? And modern science and physics is just almost confirming that we live in a mental universe, okay? We're like really close to understanding a little bit better this mental universe, and by understanding the mental universe, we will be able to reverse engineer this universal mind and create mental technologies such as telepathy, for example. Some of you guys will be skeptic and say, well, telepathy isn't real, but they have already done some experiments, for example, with rats and even with humans, where, for example, they take a rat in Brazil and a rat in the United States, and they put a chip on a rat's brain, and they teach this rat to do certain tricks to get food and go to a labyrinth and some things. And the rat in the US doesn't know anything. So they transfer the electrical signals of the Brazilian rat to the American rat, and like in a blink of an eye, the rat immediately does all of the tricks he needs in order to get the food, okay? There's also another experiment. They done 20 questions with people, you know, and they had this neurological apparatus like in their heads, and some people literally had the intuition, and they literally knew what other people were thinking just by intuition. You know, it's not like they could hear other people's thoughts, but they had this feeling, it's this answer, and they got it, okay? So literally, we're already being able to create some sort of technologies that enables us to create telepathy, and that is a mental technology, okay? So I believe that eventually we will be able to connect our brains to the internet, and we'll have some sort of hive mind on Earth, okay? And if the universe is just a big mind, I believe that maybe other species on Earth has already achieved this hive mind, okay? And once we achieve the hive mind on Earth, maybe one day we'll be able to connect our hive mind to a higher hive mind of galactic or something like this, okay? So I myself believe the universe is a hive mind, it is a mind, and I know many people think this is all crazy. I mean, how does that, I mean, but the last thing here, this will be like the last slide. If the universe is mental, our mentality is the creative principle of all of our lives, okay? If you like pay attention to this boat here, everything around us was once thought, everything was planned. In order for us to create anything, we need to think them into reality, all right? So our minds is the generative principle of our reality. Our mentality will create cycles, behaviors that will repeat themselves, and eventually will form our destiny, okay? So if we become the master of our minds, we will create the life we want, okay? Now, how does mentalism understanding that reality is mental relates to sacred geometry and vibration. Our minds is made of electricity, has a vibration. All of our emotions has a polarity and a vibration, okay? And polarities, they could either be masculine or feminine, active or passive. For example, now you guys are in this feminine position because you're all receptive, you're listening. Listening is a feminine aspect of the polarity of the mind. And I'm being masculine here because I'm talking, I'm being active, okay? So if you want to understand your mind better, you need to understand it actually has this operational system based on vibration. And we can literally transform and transmute our vibrations by paying attention to them. For example, if you're like really pissed off at something, you know, someone hit your car, you know, and you go out of the car and this other person is like literally pissed off at you. Like the polarity of his emotion is in rage, okay? If you respond with rage, you will create a resonance, and the resonance literally amplifies the rage, okay? So you can neutralize this person's rage by being receptive and understanding, okay? Literally, our hearts has this neutral capacity of neutralizing and harmonizing things. Our thoughts, they have polarity because they define things. And once you define something, it becomes polarized, okay? For example, if you have parents that fight a lot, okay? If you start analyzing their fights only through your rational mind, you may take sides, okay? But if you interpret their fights with your heart, knowing that I love both of them, you will try to reconcile. The only way to reconcile, you know, is by the heart that neutralizes, okay? So in hermetic philosophy, they explain that the master of the mind is someone who can, by will, neutralize their own emotion by being self-aware and not letting your emotions control you, okay? So we have some aspects in ourselves that are automatic, but some other aspects we can change it by will, okay? And we need to get in peace with the aspects of ourselves that we can change, and we have to be aware of the aspects that we can change so we can become masters of our minds, all right? So literally, we live in a mental universe. All beings in the universe can only perceive reality and live reality through a consciousness and through a mind. Even a mosquito has a mind, okay? Even though it's not intelligent as we are, it has a consciousness, all right? And the consciousness of all beings are electromagnetic. All the senses of all beings in the universe is based on frequency and vibration. A word is a vibration. Language, our language, is literally communicated through vibrations that are coming through my vocal cords, right? Everything that we see is reflection of light. Colors are reflections of light. Light is a vibration. Each color has a vibration, okay? Touch is literally a vibration as well. So literally everything that we're seeing is a projection or imagination of our minds processing vibrations around us, okay? So literally, this reality is mental. You don't see reality as it is. You see as you are, because you're literally this mind projecting a movie all around us, okay? So all beings in the universe, they need consciousness and mind. It's like mind is a portal to reality. There's no way for the universe to experience itself if not through consciousness. And the universe is like these infinite clusters of galaxies. We're like trillions of living beings that have consciousness, okay? So literally, if you try to pay attention to what the universe is a big consciousness, it's a big brain, okay? And this is not only abstract philosophy. Because the only way for us to change our life is by changing our mentality and to understanding how important it is to be a master of our own minds, okay? So, I'm almost ending here. We have something called neuroplasticity. Most of you guys may already know. Every time you focus on anything, you're creating synapses. Your neurons are creating fractals. Literally, our mind is like the gardener of the fractals of our brains, okay? So when you repeat a pattern, you will create like this garden of fractals, all right? And the more you repeat this pattern, the stronger and bigger that garden or that forest of neurons become. So all of the time we are actively transforming our brains and transforming ourselves through our thoughts. Whatever we consume, whatever we do, it is transforming our brains. And we can actively change that if we change our minds, our mentality, and that is our vibrational signature. And literally, neural resonance, when you think about something, you're creating this neural resonance, okay? And that is responsible for neuroplasticity and the strengthening of our neural networks, okay? And you can make them either stronger or weaker by changing your focus and attention, okay? So when you're addicted to something, like you're in this recurring pattern of behavior that you can't break, that is because you have conditioned yourself a mind or a brain that is resonating with this pattern. And you can change your resonance by changing your mentality, okay? But first, you need to have a strong emotion in order to have a strong thought that will eventually change your behavior. So the trinity of consciousness is thought, emotions, and behaviors. And thoughts are like the father, the emotions is like the mother, and the behavior is like the child, okay? So literally, you're creating your existence and manifesting existence through this trinity of resonance by your mentality, okay? And so it's cliche, but it's real. You reap what you sow, all right? So this is just the last video I put in here. It's a nice video.
This sound is made by 100 human voices, becoming one sound that connects us all for a moment. Yet there is something more. Everything that lives in the world is united by one thing: water. The vibration of the voices creates shapes on the water surface, wave patterns of harmony that we find everywhere in nature. You are, and everything that lives with you here in this world is sound, vibration, waves, resonance. You are sound. We are one.
All right, thank you guys.
Good job. Fantastic. So I have some questions for you.
Yeah, come here so you can
Okay.
like, be
Maybe another little chair over here. Can I borrow this chair? Okay. Whoops. So,
Is it? See if it's
I think
their
it's on.
turn now.
Yeah, they're on.
Okay.
So Gabriel, so you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
You're very good at teaching such a complex topic, and that's why I'd love to have you get up and teach, especially, can you imagine doing this in another language?
Yeah.
Let's hear it for Gabriel again.